Okay, can I call the meeting to order, please? We're going to start the evening, so welcome to November 14th. November's halfway through the month already. Meeting of St. John Common Council, and we're going to start this evening with a land acknowledgement read by Councillor Hickey. So over to you, Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The land on which the city of St. John, or Mennequist, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and the Pescatomakati, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let's pause and reflect.
Can I ask everyone to stand for the national anthem? Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm standing here to be captured so that we can get it captured by the cameras as well. So it's kind of either my back to here or my back to there. So thank you for joining us this evening. We have a profound sense of gratitude and admiration for the incredible efforts put forth by our dedicated partners in responding to the AIM fire September 14th of 2023. This incident tested our community's resilience, and the response was remarkable. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest appreciation to our brave firefighters who responded to the scene with their unwavering commitment to ensuring the safety of our citizens. They worked tirelessly, facing immense challenges, and their dedication is a testament to their training and profession. And you'll hear a little bit more about some of the logistics later this evening. I also want to extend our heartfelt thanks to our Incident Site Commander, Fire Chief Kevin Clifford, and his team of Operational Command officers. Together, their coordination and rapid actions played a pivotal role in ensuring that the situation was managed effectively and resolved in the safest manner possible for our community. You are all our heroes. We are also joined this evening by special guests from responding partners, and I want to thank you, our local businesses and partners, who provided essential resources, equipment, and support to first responders. Your contributions were instrumental in facilitating their work and ensuring a more efficient response. As we navigate through the recovery process, it is evident that our community's strength lies in its unity and collaboration. I'm confident that with this spirit of togetherness, we will emerge stronger and more resilient than ever. Once again, thank you, everyone, from the emergency services to our partner organizations for your unwavering support and dedication. Together, we exemplify the true meaning of community, and I'm immensely proud to be part of this extraordinary team. I ask Fire Chief Kevin Clifford to join me to present each of our special guests with a certificate of appreciation on behalf of the city and a plaque from St. John Fire Department. Chief Clifford.
Thank you, Your Worship. We will take each of our response partners one at a time through, starting with Atlantic Towing. We basically are starting from the standpoint of their engagement in the incident. So Atlantic Towing, I believe we're joined this evening by Andrew Fisher, Group Vice President, Transportation and Logistics, and Chris McDonald, Vice President, Government Relations. Atlantic Towing provided 2 marine vessels, both operating from the backside, DC side, which is the side we can't see, backside of the fire piles from the waters of the Bay of Fundy to St. John Harbor. Those 2 units were the Spitfire 3 and the Atlantic Osprey. The Spitfire 3, through its water drafting capability, provided Fundy Harbor water supply to 2 elevated master streams located on the St. John Fire Department Ladder 1 and the Irving Oil Ladder 1. There were 2 main impacts from the Spitfire 3 operational contribution. First, they supported obvious fire extinguishment operations on the A, B, and D side of the fire, and they helped to alleviate concerns that we had with the St. John water infrastructure. Recognizing the event was going to last anywhere between 8 and 88 hours, we had about 2 hours of water supply before we were going to be in trouble. So the Atlantic Spitfire truly helped our community avoid that problem. The Spitfire was operational for 24 hours. The Atlantic Osprey provided significant fire suppression water flows on the otherwise unreachable sea side of the fire. By virtue of drafting and discharging approximately 16,800 gallons of water a minute through its master streams, the impact of the Atlantic Osprey was instantaneous. The Atlantic Osprey began water suppression activity from the Bay of Fundy just after 1 p.m. on September 14th and stood down at 7:30 a.m. on the morning of September 15th, discharging 65 million liters of water over the 18-hour period. So I flipped in gallons and liters on purpose to see if anybody could figure out the math. But anyway, 65 million liters is practically 15 million gallons of water. So we've got, if I could ask the representatives from JDI, Atlantic Towing, to come up. We've got plaques and certificate. The mayor will provide the certificate, and I've got some plaques for the Spitfire crew.
Back here, please. So you 3 are gonna actually come over here. Yeah, we're gonna do this in front. I'm gonna just stand back here.
All right.
And then where'd Chief go? He's back here. And, he's already there. Chief, you come on up over here whenever you're set.
And I do have 4 plaques, gentlemen, that I want you to distribute.
Sure. I'm gonna get maybe.
Can we get one is the whole one?
Sure.
I think one is each for the Spitfire, one for Mr. Irving, and one for Colleen. This is going to be tomorrow.
We'll see you gets tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take that, just
Yep.
close the gap if you can, just in the center there. There we go. I don't wanna see the podium. It's,
No, I hear you.
yeah. So you turn this way. You 2 are really tall, you're gonna stand right here. Over. Sorry. Okay, so, yeah, Barry, you're gonna stand right in here. Over this way. Yeah, I can't see behind those guys.
Okay.
Keep going, right there, good. Okay, so you 4, turn this way, and then come up to the back of the table here. Yep, in here, kind of make a semicircle. Yeah, exactly. Come up this way a little more, so you me see here. If you turn this on, you can move it to just a touch, Jerry, come on this side. Okay. Nobody move, just smile. Okay, great. Up here, folks. Hold that right there with you here. Just make sure everybody's smiling, with their eyes open here. Give me a second. So council, stay there.
Who's the tallest?
Thank you very much. So there's two others, so their names are on them.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. And we still got to do the
Okay.
other two.
Yep.
You're going to stay here while we
Yes,
do the other two?
yes, we've been
Okay.
directed to stay here while this was talking.
So like I said, in the sequence of how people arrived, we'll go to the Irving Oil Limited. I think we are joined this evening by Dean Martin, Director, Refinery Health, Safety and Environment, Jeff McDonald, Emergency Program Manager, Marcel Robichaud, Emergency Response Trainer, and Walker Clark, Emergency Response Team Lead and the refinery's Fire Chief. Irving Oil provided 12 250-gallon totes of fire suppression foam used in hydrocarbon incidents, as well as fires where the fuel load is tightly compacted. Irving Oil also provided their 100-foot aerial truck with an elevated master stream, which at the time of purchase flowed the largest volume of fire suppression water of any fire truck in North America, at 300 gallons a minute. The Irving Oil 100-foot aerial truck also contained elevated thermal imaging technology, which was used a lot at the tail end of the fire, in providing us an opportunity to identify the smoldering stages of the fire within the deep seated spots of the pile. The Irving Oil ladder truck was on site for just over 24 hours, rotating 6 different people through the response period. Irving Oil refuel operations were also critical for the sustainability of the suppression effort. Irving Oil delivered fuel to the fire apparatus at the site under extremely hazardous conditions that contained smoke, heat, flying projectiles extending from the burning pile. So you can imagine driving a fuel truck, hooking up and connecting to the intake pipes of the apparatus while things are flying around you. And so it certainly recognized, I don't know who was driving, but certainly passed on that it wasn't lost on us, that must have been a precarious experience for him. So without further ado, could I have Irving Oil come up to receive the merit certificate and our plaque? I'll just grab it. Thank you. So we've got 3 of these. You got to make sure you.
Oh, yeah, right. I've heard
Make
that
sure you
before.
distribute them.
So, you guys just turn your shoulders in this way a little bit
Just
more
make sure
there.
so-
Just try to make
Okay, where are we gonna
come
go?
in there, Brent.
I don't know here, this guy's gonna tell us where we're going here
I'll
now.
tell you what to do, yeah. No, that's pretty good. And then you come on the side. And, so you gentlemen start this way a little more. Yep. Try to, she's not gonna bite you.
You've seen me on TV.
She might.
Come in a little bit tighter there. That's good. So, let's see.
Good enough for a girl like you, is it?
You guys smile.
Glasses.
Okay. There's your hopes, good. Handful here. Hang on. Okay. All right.
You got professional support here, Emma.
Okay, that's here, guys. Joanna, can you-
She'll just use a picture of my house for it.
That's great.
I think Joe missed you on
Thanks so much. Nice to meet you. Myself.
I just like the bug ammo, but.
Thank you, Council. This is KV. So at the end of the KV, I'm going to obviously bring KV up, then I've got just some very brief summary comments. I don't want you just running out. Once KV gets their stuff, you can run out after the summary comments. Because we do have a thrilling agenda, so if you wanted to stay. Anyway, to Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department. We are joined this evening by Fire Chief Michael Boyle and Deputy Chief Sean White. Kennebecasis Valley Fire Department Tanker 1 was part of a water shuttle operation that joined the St. John Fire Department tankers in transferring water from hydrants located away from the emergency scene to a large porter tank on site that was the water source for 2 ground-based master streams. Water shuttle to porter tank operations are typical for non-hydrant locations and in no way normal operations for industrial incidents. You could not fathom a situation where that would happen. This application was indeed unique to the fire service, but it was successful in providing a continuous water supply for 2 large master stream devices that protected the property and other fuel loads, while at the same time, again, alleviating concerns around the water infrastructure on the west side. Because as we use that water, we didn't have to use our hydrant water, and we didn't have to drain the water from the west side. So without further ado, I'll ask the deputy and the chief of the KV Fire Department to come up. Chief, one for each of your stations. Deputy.
Good, you guys turn it this way. Good. Just go back a little more, if you can, yeah? Okay. Just come in a little bit better there, Jerry. So, sorry, Barry, you 3, you guys go these, just a touch. Keep going, yep. Just take a baby step out this direction, yeah, just so I can see it. Yeah, good. Okay. All right. We know the drill now at this point. Yeah, that's great. Good. Okay. Anybody opposed to this one more? And then I'm going to ask you 4 to stay in front. And let the council, you can come up back. Just on the side here, okay? I can have everybody do it. So, just do a group shot.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, so you 4. Right here, right behind So just make sure they don't hear too much. Okay, so, I'm sorry, council, if you guys don't mind, just come up on the side a bit. Hey, Jerry, can I get you guys to come over here on the side, please? Yeah, please. Everybody, just come up to the side, just need 2 seconds. Okay, that's good. That's great. Good up here. Good view. More. All right, that's great. Thank you.
Great.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay, this is going on YouTube.
Yeah. Great.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for.
Thanks
Where is that? Oh, you've got the.
You got, yeah. So I do know as everybody gets in their seat that I didn't want to, take the lead from your worship. So again, the worship has always been so grateful and so kind and with respect to our emergency response and the need to collaborate. So I'm doing a lot of the talking tonight, your worship. I didn't want it, but they'll have to bear with me. And in closing, I do want to kind of put things in context. I remember running into early morning meeting with Andy Dixon and Bruce Connell of St. John Port, and only from some of the stuff that I've been exposed to, understanding large piles of debris, whether it's tire fires, automobile fires, and I remember saying to them that we could be here for days. We were there for 40 hours. We were there for basically a day and a half. But we should have been there. We should have been there for days, if not for the work of all of us. And I'm just looking for my end notes here. End note. Okay, good stuff, your worship. Yep, very good. So to put that into context, we could have been there 3 to 6 days. And so it is estimated that this was the largest fire suppression water flow event in the city's history. So we basically discharged the largest volume of water in the history of the city of St. John. The approximate maximum sustainable fire suppression water flows without those recognized this evening would have been between 25,000 and 35,000 gallons, 2,500 and 3,500 gallons a minute. That's would have been what we would have been able to do without our partners, based on our water supply system and our own the capability of our own units. The collaborative efforts of Atlantic Towing, Irving Oil, Kennebecasis Fire Department, with St. John Fire cannot be overappreciated from the standpoint of community impact. It is estimated that the fire suppression impact of the foam agent that Irving Oil supplied, the additional fire flows achieved through KV and JDI, those recognized here tonight, would have taken 6 days to achieve without our collaboration. And you can imagine if that event had been allowed to continue for anywhere between 3, 4, 5, and 6 days. An incredible demonstration for all of us, and I know we can talk about it for years to come, of what happens when we all work to the same community outcome. So thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It's great work. And no one knows what would have happened without our partners, so it was impressive, and it was great that we all came together. We all understood the need, and we all arrived here. And Chief, thanks again to you and your team. Amazing. Thanks so much. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item is 2.1 on the agenda, minutes of October 30th.
Minutes of October 30th. I've got a mover and a seconder, Councillor Hickey and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is item 3, approval of agenda, and there are 2 proposed additions from Committee of the Whole. The first one is 17.1, Building Safer Community Fund Grant Agreement, and 17.2, appointments to committees.
Okay. Councillor Hickey? Oh, sorry, I'll get the, I'm going to, Councillor Hickey has his light on.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I would just ask that we pull 11.1 for the simple reason that it's captured in 5.1.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So I need a mover and a seconder on the Councillor Radwan and Councillor Hickey on the adoption of the agenda. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is disclosures of interest, if we have any.
Disclosures, conflict of interest. Councillor Sullivan. 17.1, excellent, thank you. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Next item is item 5, the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, over to you, Deputy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.1 through to 5.4, please.
I get a seconder on that motion. Councillor Sullivan. On the question, Councillor Radwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pull 5.3 for a more nuanced discussion.
Okay, 5.3. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't know if it needs to be pulled, but I do have a question on 5.1.
Yes, go ahead.
I would just like to see the addition in the first paragraph, just given our recent conversation about it. And of course, I did pull my motion specific to the top 10 housing accelerator best practices. I'd just like to see a line in there that would essentially substitute the last couple lines in the first paragraph of that letter to include something along the lines of our council endorses the implementation of the 10 best practices, and with approval of the city's HAF application, will be prepared to implement all recommendations, or even simply endorse the 10 best practices and will take steps to implement all of them.
Well, thank you, Councillor. CAO, over to you.
Through your worship, yes, we'd be happy to make that change. In terms of the resolution, I think it can remain the same because we say generally as presented in accordance, and we'll just make that change in advance of the mayor's signature.
Perfect. All right. So Councillor Hickey, you're good there? Okay. So I'll call the question on the consent agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is members' comments.
Members' comments. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Lots going on in the community. In particular, particularly moving Remembrance Day ceremony today, whether any of them that you attended in the city. I know council was all over the place, but it was a particular pleasure to be at TD Station for the official Remembrance Day ceremony. Of course, you were there as well as the deputy. In particular, recognition of the two World War II veterans between Winnie Rice and Victor Burrell that were both in attendance. Combined, they share 160 years of service to the Canadian Armed Forces, which I think is particularly incredible. It was great to see them there. It was great to see all of the city's first responders there as well, between St. John Police Force as well as St. John Fire, and a special shout out to Bernie Cormier for his work on that. And of course, particular recognition to Chief Clifford, who will completed his final round as the leading fire in the ceremony, which is particularly exciting. I was also able to attend the St. John Hospitality Awards. Lots of exciting awards being announced there. I've attended it for a few years and get the pleasure of offering a couple of the awards. Thanks very much to Mike Beliveau, their president, and of course lots of great restaurants were mentioned, lots of great hospitality institutions were mentioned, not to mention a couple owned by people around this table, like Taste of Egypt was highlighted as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Your Worship. First, flu season is upon us. Just a reminder to get your flu shots, get your COVID shots, get any other shots your doctors are recommending. Make sure you're sneezing into your elbow bits, washing your hands. I am seeing, just out and about, a few more masks around town. And I think I think we're forever changed that at least people recognize that if they've got a sniffle, they don't want to send it off to somebody else, and people are wearing masks. So just make sure you recognize and respect when you see people around you wearing masks to look after the health of all of us. And speaking of looking around, so it's halfway through November, so I've got half of a mustache. Sometimes middle of December, if I let it keep going, I might have something recognizable. A little humbled around this table, but incredibly important Movember, and movement about men's health. Whether you are male or you just love somebody who is male, traditionally men don't talk about their health, go to doctors late, suck it up, all those things. And incredibly important when you get to be my age and more, testicular cancer, prostate cancer is incredibly important. And the statistics show that we lose more men because of mental health and suicide than we tend to do females. One of the reasons being men don't talk about it. So the mustache is to prompt people to ask me, Mr. Sullivan, why are you growing a mustache? And then it lets me talk about it. And the other piece is a little bit of a fundraiser every year because Movember is a registered charity that does fund research into prostate and testicular cancer and fund support with regards to men and mental health. So just raise awareness. It's okay to not be okay. It's definitely okay to talk about any of these things and support these charities or anybody else because as we saw earlier, when people come together in St. John, good things happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to first congratulate the winners of the Outstanding Business Awards and Hospitality Awards. The events were both done beautifully. And I wanted to send out a thank you to Mr. Harold Wright, who does a beautiful Remembrance Day ceremony on the east side. Wanted to let everybody know that Diwali is taking place this Saturday at Samuel de Champlain at 5:30. It's a great event and you can purchase tickets online. And the Christmas parade's also happening this Saturday, starting at 6. And they have the route online if anybody's looking for that. So I hope that everybody has fun. And I also, unfortunately, wanted to extend my sincere condolences to our St. John residents that's lost over 100 family members in Gaza that were killed in the genocide. My thoughts are with you.
Councillor Norton, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. November 25th, the other Santa Claus parade on the city's west side. So once you're done uptown, make your way west, and we'll have a daytime event for you as well. So easier to get the kiddos out to that one. So a special occasion for the residents that call Lancaster home. So the other thing is lots of vacancies on our agencies, boards, and commissions. So if you know somebody, put a bug in their ear. We're looking for good people, and the talent pool is rich in our Greater St. John area. So Heritage Development Board, Imperial Theatre Planning Advisory Committee, Pro Kids, St. John Community Arts Board, St. John Free Public Library, Substandard Properties Appeal Committee, and Transit Commission. We're looking to fill vacancies, and they're important in terms of the services that we offer here in St. John. So if you know somebody, tap them on the shoulder and give them a word of encouragement to plug in. So thank you, Your Worship, for that time.
Thank you, Councillor. Over to you, Councillor Killen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say I'm appreciative of being able to speak at the YMCA Peace Breakfast tomorrow morning. So if anyone still is looking for something to do tomorrow at 7:30, be bringing greetings on behalf of City Council. And I want to say that I apologize for not being in attendance last week, and I apologize to the folks that were here because I absolutely support the ceasefire and freeing Palestinians and the efforts that are being made by these folks. They are tireless and they are just absolutely incredible at what they're trying to achieve. So big support for them and everything they're trying to get make sure happens, which is peace. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will say that November the 11th was a wonderful ceremony. It was Bernie Cormier's last time he claims to do it. So I want to publicly thank him for his years of service of putting that together. He's taken that from a small outdoor, I remember years ago taking my kids up to King Square to the Cenotaph, and he's moved that from those outdoor ceremonies to incorporated it into the TD station, and it's had an amazing response by the public. So it's been wonderful. the whole lower bowl at least was filled this year, I would say, and some of the upper bowl, it's taken us some time to get back. We canceled it in 20 with COVID. In 21, we did it outdoors. And then 22 and 23, we went back to TD station. So I want to thank Bernard for that. So moving on, City Clerk, next item.
Next item is a presentation, item 8.1 on the agenda. It's City of St. John Place Brand presentation.
Okay, I'm sending this one over to Lisa Casey for us.
Apparently I need a pin for council.
Usually don't have closed.
Flip it.
Flip it. We usually don't close it, sorry. Just give me 1 second.
Oh, this might be it. Oh, I totally beat the system. It does not usually. I think I got it. Yeah. Thanks. Oh, yeah, first time I've ever been an IT person. It's not at the front slide though. So I'm going to go up here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Lisa Casey. I'm the Director of External Relations for the city, and I'm joined by Aaron White, who's our Communications Manager for the City of St. John. We're very pleased to be standing here in front of you this evening to introduce you to the new Place brand for the city. The initiative to develop the Place brand began earlier this year, and it was an initiative of Common Council, a priority initiative. And throughout the process, we were supported by the work of professional marketing agency Hawk Communications and worked lock and step with Envision St. John as well. In working with Hawk Communications, I should tell you that they were the primary authors for the Envision's regional Place brand and have extensive experience in developing brands for the province of New Brunswick, large corporate entities, media outlets, provincial corporations, and many others. So this evening, we're going to run you through an overview of the need for the refreshed brand, briefly discuss the research findings, announce the new Place brand, and finally discuss the launch plan. So the City of St. John, along with Quispamsis, Rothesay, Grand Bay, Westfield, Hampton, Fundy, St. Martin's, and the Fundy Rural District, form a region that is best described as always moving forward. This regional brand, which we're all familiar with, was launched by Envision St. John in the fall of 2022. Like I said, as a priority initiative, Council identified the need to develop a distinct municipal brand for the City of St. John, a brand that is aligned with the regional brand, speaks to the unique attributes of the people of St. John, and fosters even greater pride of place within our organization and the community. On behalf of Envision St. John, Narrative Research completed an in-depth research review from residents of southern New Brunswick in October of 2021. And they tested a few themes and ideas during this research period. The ideas served as the foundation upon which the regional Place brand was developed. And we were fortunate enough to be able to review that same body of research to determine our own value proposition. So how residents within the city and those living outside of the city feel specifically about St. John. A value proposition, as many of you know, includes the highlights that are unique or ownable advantages compared to other cities. So when listing attributes, people from St. John area named the following as their top 5, which I think we can all relate and agree to. So friendly and helpful people, hardworking and industrious, unique location, unique lifestyle, history, and culture. Based on the research review, it became apparent that the following needs to be included within the development of the City of St. John's Place brand. We need to portray a modern, forward-looking community, position St. John as an ideal place to live, work, and study, use language and images that are very appealing and relatable, and highlight St. John as growing in a very positive way. I'm very good at this. So our story. We hear about this often. What is the St. John story? So stemming from the research, we developed the following narrative to tell the St. John story. It's a blend of both the organization and the community. Right in the heart of the St. John region, you'll find a forward-thinking city that's powered by incredible people. People who are real, not pretentious. People who wear their hearts on their sleeves. It's a place where people actually say good morning when they meet someone in the streets. It's a place where neighbors get to know each other's names, for real. It's a city of character and characters, where everyone belongs. In St. John, people are down to earth, genuine, and first to lend a helping hand. The City of St. John team brings that same street-side authenticity to the work they do, from public transit to garbage pickup, emergency situations, or day-to-day questions. We take a one-stop approach to service and bring a supportive, fact-based attitude to every interaction. As a city, we're relatable, are progressive, we stay focused on results, we're inclusive, and reflect the character of the people we see around us every day. St. John is a community of varied and refreshingly practical, common-sense people. But being practical doesn't mean we don't dream big or make big things happen. Like all great cities, we act local but think global, which is a perfect description of St. John, a place where big things happen without it ever feeling too big. We're a small city with a big heart, built on the passion and hard work of our people. I'd now like to invite Erin White, Communications Manager, to introduce you to our new brand.
Thank you, Lisa. So we're really, really pleased to introduce the new City of St. John place brand and tagline. City of St. John, small city, big heart. St. John is a small city with a big heart. The phrase encapsulates the essence of our community, its warm, welcoming spirit, and our dedication to unity, growth, and environmental stewardship. As a city, we promise to put our hearts, our energy, and our humanity into everything we do. We will work tirelessly with residents, businesses, organizations, and partners to make the City of St. John an even better place to live, work, grow, and prosper. We will listen, learn, and respond to the real needs of people and meet them with real solutions. We will be responsible to the people of this city and ensure that they have opportunities for input and feedback and are heard every step of the way. We promise that we will strive to make decisions and promote services that are for the benefit of all St. Johners. These are the characteristics that our brand reflects, and as an organization, we will exhibit and continually work to champion in everything we do. In describing who we are, our brand values, we are transparent and genuine. We tell it like it is. We never try sugarcoating anything. We are honest and open in every interaction and focus on facts rather than just opinions. We are approachable and easy to deal with. We are friendly, but not afraid to have tough conversations when needed. We are not a faceless corporation, but a group of real people who value the same things all St. Johners do. We are easy to relate to, and when you interact with us, you feel valued, empowered, and supported. We are collaborative and inclusive. We're in this together. We work through challenges together, enjoy successes together, and move forward together. We always have and always will. We value our residents and partners and make decisions with them, not for them. Our doors are always open, and we are here to listen and work together. We know that more heads are better than one, and we know that great ideas can come from anywhere. We're also not afraid to get our hands dirty, and we'll roll up our sleeves and be right beside our partners, working hard to get things done. We are forward-thinking and industrious. We are proud of our history and don't shy away from our roots as an industrial port. It's in our DNA, makes us who we are, and is part of the reason we are so great at bringing new projects to life. We get things done. We are not the biggest city in the world, but we are just as capable. We are able to make big city things happen while still being true to who we are. That's the magic of St. John. It's this positive attitude combined with work ethic that has forged our city in the past and will continue making it even stronger in the future. We are helpful and welcoming. Whether you are a resident, newcomer, a business owner, a student, a young professional, or anyone staying in our beautiful city, you will feel welcomed. You will feel instantly at home and feel like you can interact with us as easily as you can with your neighbor, because that's really who we are. Neighbors helping neighbors. That's our philosophy and the spirit behind everything we do. I will now let Lisa come back and show you some of our visuals.
Thanks, Erin. When communicating a brand, visuals are just as important as the words and actions. So as part of the brand refresh, we have a look and feel that we've developed that's very distinct for St. John, and we're referring to it as a shape overlay. So shape overlay simply is a semi-transparent shape overlay, which you see here, and it'll be used to highlight and frame key people or activities within photos, and it will be the primary design element for the city of St. John. This does not mean we will always use it, but we will consistently use it, so you'll see it often. And when looking at the headline style, so tagline, small city, big heart, it is highly adaptable. So you can use this with several different value propositions. We'll use it as an organization, and we would encourage community members and other businesses to use it at their leisure as well. So it can be used across a range of communication materials and needs, and can be adapted quite easily. So simply by changing the word heart to a different descriptor. A number of examples are on the screen here. You can read through those. Now I'm going to show you how it works together. So we've got the imagery, we've got the language, we've got the shape overlay. Let's give you a few samples here. You'll recognize a few folks. Maybe yourselves. It'll always come as a surprise. This is a sample of our presentation, or what you might think of as a PowerPoint template. Business cards, which you have in front of you today. Pop-up banners, which you'll see on the sides of the room. You may recall our previous ones were just a very large logo salad. And finally, the launch plan. So what I've shown you as samples are simply ones that we've created so far. There will be many more to come as we roll this out. We did want to give you a selection of what's to come. So the rollout will happen now both internally and externally over the coming weeks and months. The launch plan includes communication to employees internally and to the community. It's an evolving brand, as all are, and something we'll work hard to bring to life as we progress through its lifespan. As part of the rollout, we're making an initial introduction this evening and have developed several brand assets, many of which you've seen. It also includes a brand guideline book, which will be used to help develop any new materials from here on out, and that will be provided as a sort of a working document internally. And plans to reflect the new brand within our website, Shape Your City page as well, and social media accounts. We're also going to be capturing new photography and videography over the months ahead. Brochures, posters, advertisements, you're going to see all of this brand work rolled out in the development of those as well. Also some community campaigns that are in the works and underway. One thing you didn't see in these slides that I do want to point out, because if you hadn't had a chance to yet, you should, it's really cool, is we've wrapped the elevator down to customer service from the Pedway. So that was wrapped at 2:30 this afternoon. Really quite excited about those. We can have fun. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be conducting a thorough communication audit to determine what's needed in 2024, and that'll help us best prioritize our needs and the resources that we have. And of course, feedback will be monitored on a regular basis so that we can help fine-tune and evolve the messaging and strategies. Just to wrap things up here, the Small City Big Heart truly is a reflection of who we are, and we think about it in the community as well. On any given day, you can stroll through the city market or the streets of Uptown St. John, where you see century-old architecture coexist with modern boutiques and vibrant cafes. And what truly sets this place apart is the kindness of residents who greet each other with smiles, stop to chat with neighbors on the sidewalk. You can't get from City Hall to the city market through the Pedway without seeing at least 5 people that you know. And everybody holds doors open for strangers. St. John's Big Heart, I think, is particularly evident in the way the community comes together during times of need. We've seen that. We experienced it today when we appreciated some of our partners here. So whenever there's a natural disaster or some hardship strikes a family, the city really rallies as one. People organize fundraisers, they collect food and clothing and offer their support truly in any way they can. I don't think I've ever seen a post go out on social media where someone said, I'm moving and I need a new sofa or dining room table, and 20 people all jump on board and say they've got it for them. So it's like the entire city just comes together as a large extended family, and everybody's always willing to lend a helping hand. Another perfect example of this is the tradition of the annual Harbor Lights campaign, and that's when the waterfront really comes alive with a display of lights and decorations. And it's more than just a visual spectacle, though. It really is people coming together who care deeply for the community. So we see it in everything that we do. It's hard not to see it in St. John. So our Big Heart extends to our surroundings as well, where residents are committed to preserving the environment and livability of our city. They participate in beach cleanups, protect the ecosystems of the Bay of Fundy, take pride in our stewardship of our parks, trails, and neighborhoods. And it truly is evident. So it came as no surprise to us that the community told us that's what St. John is, and that's the feeling they get when they're here. So in terms of the brand and what we're asking of you is for it to be most successful, we really need to come together to champion it and act as brand ambassadors. Aaron and I will support, but it's not simply the two of us. So we hope it will find its way into the things that you're doing, and that you'll start to live or continue to live and reflect the brand in your conversations, actions, and the leadership roles you have within the community. And we're going to be here doing the exact same thing and supporting you along the way. So we are looking for your feedback. If you have it now, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, send us your ideas. We are going to be setting up an inbox, an internal one for you to do that. You can email us at any time. And check in with us, see how we're doing, and we'll check in with you. But in St. John, I guess having a big heart is not just saying it, it truly is a way of life. We're excited about the new brand and what it captures and means to be a proud St. Johner and also an employee in the service to our community. That concludes our brand launch.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Aaron. It's great. I'll just show this off while we're talking about.
Yeah, the shirts.
Yeah,
yes,
I like it.
Mugs
Small City,
and,
Big Heart. I can remember that. So it's very good. And you're right. It is reflective of who we are. So I've got a couple of questions, comments for you. Councillor Killen's up first. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'd love to just provide some feedback because I think it's been an interesting couple of years. And I understand while there's obviously parameters for kind of sharing what all of us are doing or what we may be up to, like I just want to provide an example of like my Bayshore Polar Dip, which is funny, is the last picture that you have there, where it was picked up by the Telegraph. It's picked up by like people who in the community who are on CBC and stuff like that. But the city doesn't normally pick up the stuff we're doing out there in the community as councillors and the mayor. So I'm just wondering if there's a policy that needs to change or if there's direction that needs to be made to sort of incorporate things like that aren't so political, that are just more community based that we're doing as councillors.
Yeah, I'm not sure it needs to, through your mayor to the councillor, I'm not sure it needs to be a policy or just a practice, right? For us to continue to do some of that, so to highlight the work that is happening within the community. I think that's how we're going to really breathe life into this brand.
Yeah.
So it's a great
Yeah,
idea.
there's so much going on, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, from different initiatives that everyone's working on, it's just so, would be so cool to see, because I think that does show our big heart. It shows that there's like all 10 of us are out there really working on different initiatives and different things, and it's not necessarily connected directly to council, but it's cool and it's fun, and I think it shows like not just to like brag about what we're doing, but that there are significant efforts being made, and that y'all support us too, right? Like, because we love to share your stuff, and I get that. Like, we got to embody that brand. We are the big heart, small city people, and I think we can do that. We can hashtag and stuff like that, but it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, so it does. It speaks to the livability of the city and what's happening. So I would encourage you to continue to do that, because I know some of you are very, very good at it, and share some of those stories with us as well.
Yeah, it's a good idea because it's not everything is always council related, but it's nice when you see your elected officials out in the community all the time. It's just nice. Councillor Harris, over to you.
Yeah, picking up on that, I think just some direct, I guess the question I would have, which may lead to another question, is are we going to get specific? Because one of my concerns has always been that, and mind you, we haven't had the backdrop of this this is a far more colorful and vibrant place brand. There's no question about that. So 10 out of 10 on that. In order to achieve what I see in the meaning of small city, big heart, I come from a small community. You know, a lot of people forget I come from Blacks. Everybody knows everybody. It's not that different in St. John, but we're very ambiguous with what we share and the people we put there and the stories we tell about it. So I guess I'm wondering, do we plan a change in strategic delivery to our communications in this place brand transformation? Or like, is there a plan is there a change in the plan and delivery that comes with this? Or is this just more an appearance and wordage usage and style guide? And there's no wrong answer here. This is not a rebuke or anything. I just don't quite know where it starts and finishes.
Yeah, it's a good question. So through you, Mayor, to the councillor, visuals will help play a part in that, right? People seeing themselves in the community and a reflection of people in the community through the work that we're doing. So we will be looking to do more of that and really showing the diversity in St. John. So not the typical photos that we've had or have. So that's going to be a concerted effort on our part, but having a little bit more fun with it. So we will still have the municipal communications that's required, right? The news and information and updates that people need. But this takes more of a marketing and promotional approach, right, to the strategy, which is what we're looking to employ with this brand refresh.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. And like what I'm hearing you say is that there is some style differences in how we communicate. And I get it. There is an obligation we have legislatively as well as for public safety and all the different pieces. I guess what I would be looking for is a further conversation on some of the delivery methods and on some of the engagement methods. Because I see a lot of opportunity to insert this brand in ways that can really help achieve its goals if we're willing to push a little further into the proactive and engagement and responsive spheres, if you will, of social media and that part. So anyway, for what it's worth, further conversation would love to have. So
Great.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan?
Thanks, Your Worship. When I received this via email the other day, I put this through my own local focus group, being my daughter. And we got talking about it. She's in poli-sci, and it took me a minute. Like, I thought, little C, big heart, okay, how does it grab? And we got talking about St. John, and a lot of the things you described, St. John's a community that pulls over for funerals. People outside St. John don't understand it. You're right. Somebody puts out on social media, there's been an apartment fire, they need furniture. St. John's also the community that comes together and screams at us when they think Heather Way's not right. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, actually. I'm saying it's because people are incredibly engaged. I'm a big fan of hockey teams that have grit and don't mind going into the corners. and that's St. John. They might be little people who play with a big heart. And we're looking at the juxtaposition of we are authentic, we're transparent, people are going to tell you what they think. You are going to be having an argument with somebody today about a particular stretch of road, and then an emergency happens like we saw earlier, and those same people who were having that fight today, this morning at Tim Hortons, are the same people going together to support that family this afternoon. And we thought, and you know, after chatting about it, like, this is perfect St. John. Like, I don't know, I'm just so impressed, and the opportunities, small city, big ideas, and all those other pieces that flow off of it. This one counselor is incredibly impressed and pleased with what you have come up with. I'm also impressed that you kept it as secret as you did from us all. That was well done. I guess the one piece, and this kind of adds on to what Councillor Killen was talking about, that might work both ways, is part of the package that's being put together, and the sharing and ability to market and get this brand out. The overlays you demonstrated, would they be available? So when we're out and about taking pictures of beautiful St. John and things that we see, that not only a hashtag, but more than that, you know, for those, and I'll get my kids to teach me how, but could take that and mash them together to really blow things up so that it's not just our paid staff that are throwing it out there, making it easy for all of us.
Yep, through the mayor to the councillor. We will make as much of the graphics as possible available to you if you're going to use them. We love that. So the overlays, we could also have complete images for you with overlays on them, so you don't have to worry about trying to mash them together if that's what you like, and the logo. And yeah, so we're more than happy to do that. We'll have a image bank that you can have access to. And that would be the same for staff. We'll provide that for staff as well.
Cool.
Yeah. And then if there's anything else that you think, if you're in the community and you're doing something and you want to play with the tagline and use one, then let us know. We'll help you create it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickey?
Thanks very much, Your Worship, through you to Lisa. I think I share in everyone's excitement for this, and would suggest to Councillor Sullivan's points, I think this really captures who we are as a community, and I think it also captures who we are and hope to be as an organization. I would suggest that a lot of what's in here captures our mission and vision statement as an organization, so I really hope moving forward that commissioners, that your team, that our team around the Horseshoe own this as a brand, our employees own this as a brand, live it in their daily work, live it in their communications with their public and their work with the public. I think it speaks exactly to what our corporate mission or vision statement is and should be. And I think now the real feat will be owning it as an organization and also as a community.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden?
Yeah, I just want to thank you. I think it was a fabulous job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I thought so too. Councillor Redwan?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Lisa Casey, I got to tell you, I wish you would have been able to capture me looking at the elevator today, because I thought, wow, this is bold and this is warm, and that's absolutely what we need. I think that, you know, during council priority sessions, we had a lot of conversation about brand and like, what is the St. John brand, you know? There's been all sorts of words that have been thrown out over the years, and we needed something that we could land on, that people could really understand. And I think it's great. I mean, you can kind of, you can kind of compare brands. If you think about Google, right? How easy it is, and they change it with the holidays, so they change the look of it, but you always recognize what it is. And so using that small city and then changing the end, but still the font's the same, it looks the same. It's a beautiful way of doing that same sort of thing. Small city, big heart. And I get in the elevator, by the way, and I look, and it's in French. So I thought, wow, how inclusive are we? That's wonderful. And so it was really, really wonderful. I think you guys are going to have fun playing with this, and it'll be so easy for you to brand, and hopefully we can keep pushing it out. And I love sharing all the city stuff as it is right now. So now it's going to look even more beautiful. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy?
Thank you, Worship. Lisa and Aaron, you nailed this really well. This is really, really well done. I think it captures St. John as I see it. I've lived here my whole life. Councillor Sullivan said, I've had more people say to me, everybody in St. John pull over for a funeral? Like, yeah, we do. That's St. Johners. And, the communities, we see the communities come together every day in our priority neighborhoods. All the neighborhood groups, they come together, they socialize, they help one another on a daily basis, so I think you captured it perfectly. I'm so enthusiastic about this. I'd like to see like some sort of a photo contest or something, like we want the best photo of a small city with a big heart, and we want the best photo of small city, big opportunities, right? And then get people sending in pictures. And this is exciting and it's long overdue. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Deputy. Over to you, Councillor Norton.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Going last, it's a disadvantage because I agree with everything that has been said here today. So Aaron, Lisa, really good job. It's funny when you look back, especially Lisa in your time in this role when maybe a decade ago, place branding, it probably was in your sector, place branding wasn't a term I would have been familiar with. Maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And you can't really look up place branding now without the word economic development tied to it. And, there's in my day job as an educator, we often think of ourselves as we're really the economic generator for the province. We are the Department of Economics, if you will. And I look at this as sort of that engine, that horsepower behind prosperity and economic development and investment. It's funny just when you're looking up place branding, what pops up, and when you sent your email with your slide deck on it, I started just taking a look at it. And you can go down a number of wormholes, but place branding helps to shape a community and increase economic opportunities for citizens and businesses of all sizes. And it doesn't matter the source, but place branding and economic development are almost synonymous. You go to another source, place branding plays an important role in attracting foreign and direct investment and boosting businesses and drawing tourists and talent. You go on, the main objective of place branding strategies is to align perceptions and investment into community. Everything that you've done, you've hit it out of the park. I'm happy to share it and promote it and endorse it. And you've done a really good job, but I applaud you for growing the community and making us more prosperous. And as we grow and we evolve and we become more inclusive and we build all these things, sometimes there's a natural loss of identity in redefining ourselves and finding ourselves. And we do that both as businesses and personally and professionally. But I think this really ties, it takes care of that maybe loss of identity that's sometimes been lost in who St. John is and who it's becoming and who it always was. And it's that big heart piece, but above all else, continuing to drive the prosperity of our community, no matter if you're businesses or individuals or the municipality, and they're intrinsically linked. So just a really good job. It was a real nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, that looks like it for stopping for vehicles. And if you have the unfortunate experience of following a hearse, it is very nice. So but it is St. John. So thanks, team, and thanks to you as well. So I'll take a motion to receive for information. Councillor Stewart and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you. Next item is 11.2. 11.1 was removed. Item 11.2 is from Councillor Harris, and it's proposed amendments to zoning bylaw and municipal plan. And this is a notice of motion in the first meeting where this has been submitted.
Okay, so Councillor Harris, over to you to read your proposed motion into the minutes.
Yep, up for discussion in the next council meeting. Proposed motion reads as follows. Resolved that Common Council aligns with emerging best practices around zoning and housing creation by amending our municipal plan and zoning plan to do the following. allow up to 4 units on single-family homes or duplex lots, allow up to 6 units along rapid transit routes, petition the province to eliminate the requirement for public hearings where neighborhood plans or community plans have alignment with the proposed development, eliminate parking minimums to allow for developers to decide what level of parking service is required, rationalize zoning in St. John to allow to reduce zone types, and change all commercial zoning to high-density mixed use by right.
Thank you, Councillor. So as the councillor said, this motion will come back to us in 2 weeks. This notice of motion is to give us all the heads up. We'll do a little bit of homework. We'll get some information, talk to Councillor Harris, et cetera, and it'll be up for debate in 2 weeks at the next council meeting. So there's nothing to do with that, correct? So we move on to the next item.
Thank you. Next is item 12.1. It's an update by the Chief Administrative Officer on select catalytic projects and advocacy.
Over to you, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just be a second here. Yes, so this evening for the catalytic projects update, I'll provide a brief update on 3 of the infrastructure projects that are advancing or we're seeking to advance. And first, I'll start off with the Fundy Key and the public space, now named at the last meeting the Gathering Place, or Idoli Makahamak. The public space project is now in its final phase. Significant progress is visible from viewing the site. Overall, the work continues on the granite tidal steps that will form the amphitheater and the stairs down to the harbor. The new stage construction continues. Construction of the ice rink has mechanical work that's underway that also continues. Regarding the patio enclosures this month, we learned of a slight delay on the shipment of materials to the site due to supply chain issues, and the team is reviewing the project schedule details and will provide an update to council before the end of the year in terms of where things are at with the overall project. Sections of the project, like Harbor Passage and the Promenade, are well advanced, but some work like the colored coating and the finishing and planting of landscaping features will be done in the spring. With respect to the private sector development at the Fundy Key site, as you'll notice, there's a crane down there now. The developer has a crane on site, and that's being set up for the driving of the piles in the next 2 weeks or so for the foundation of their new building to be located at the southwest corner of the property along the water on the cruise ship side of the terminal of the property. So driving of piles and speaking with the developer will last for approximately 5 to 7 weeks. So we're looking forward to seeing that underway. Just switching now to the Central Peninsula School and the Community Hub, the province and the Anglophone South School District and City are continuing planning work on the new Central Peninsula School and the North End School. There are several subcommittees working through various matters such as parking, public access, shared use of public spaces, traffic, and other typical engineering construction questions. With the Central Peninsula School, the city will also be re-engaging with stakeholders as it relates to the Turner Brewer Memorial and the community use of the new South End Hub. While the province has not yet committed funding on the hub for the North End School, staff have been re-engaging with community stakeholders to discuss the need and the funding opportunities for the North End School. For a community hub there, another goal of this effort is to ensure that the province and the school district have a solid plan in place to accommodate the students and families that are already using the existing supportive community services offered at Centennial and Hazen White schools, so that these schools, when they're decommissioned in 2016, that there's no loss of access for children and their families using the existing programs that are offered at those schools. And both schools remain slated to be opened in September 2026. As it relates to the new comprehensive recreation facility, staff have worked with the Fundy Region Services Commission on a regional arena needs assessment that is a requirement by the provincial government for any funding support for new or replacement of an arena. And last month, the FRSC finalized the assessment, and in late October, it went before the FRSC board and has been approved. So the Regional Development Corporation at the province will now receive the report. And this is an essential step in ensuring that the region's eligible and City of St. John is eligible for provincial funding for the local arena initiatives, something that's essential to advancing the project. So in addition, work with Deloitte is ongoing to assess the various means of bringing best value to taxpayers. And we continue to await a funding opportunity from other levels of government so that we can jump on that opportunity to further advance this catalytic project. And switching to the catalytic advocacy project. So for affordable housing, the city team continues to advance council's priority of affordable housing. The Rapid Housing Initiative, known as Barrack Green Residences, a project by Kaleidoscope Social Impact, is now under construction, and that'll bring 39 of the much-needed units to Broadview Street in the south end. In addition to the RHI, our major funding application for the Housing Accelerator Fund remains with CMHC. As covered in the consent agenda report, on October 23rd, the Minister of Housing called upon municipalities to be ambitious in their application for the Housing Accelerator Fund and release the top 10 best practices. At Growth Committee on October 31st, staff reviewed the recent statement top 10 list with committee and discussed how providing additional details as it relates to zoning bylaw reform could help advance St. John's application for the Housing Accelerator Fund. So ending exclusionary zoning has emerged as a key issue, and it's really a common denominator we're seeing in all the municipalities that have successfully entered into an agreement with CMHC, hence our letter this evening. And thanks to Council's approval of item 5.1 this evening, we will submit tomorrow the letter to Minister of Housing so that it's clear that the city's application aligns very well with our 10 Housing Accelerator best practices. And it's important we have this support from the federal government, so we really await word from the federal government as it relates to advancing a number of these key initiatives for the City of St. John. And lastly, just on to post-secondary education, just a brief update there that the work on the construction of the new 65,000 square foot building at UNBSJ continues as we move a step further towards, or a step closer towards the Integrated Health Initiative, or IHI, becoming a reality. With that, Your Worship, that concludes my update. Subject to any questions.
Thank you. Not seeing any questions. I'll take I've got a question here. Councillor Hickey? Or are you moving?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Just a couple of questions. Specific to the Central Peninsula School, is there any indication as to whether or not its inclusion will be in this year's capital budget from the province?
I'm not exactly sure on timing of funding, but, and I see Ms. Poffenroth isn't sure either. We could circle back to you on that. You know, we do know that design is underway and it's fully intended to open in September 2026.
So I guess it needs to be in this capital budget. And specific to the Housing Accelerator Fund, I hope we consider, we've recognized the importance of what that application will bring to this community. We've recognized the importance and critical nature of how those initiatives will support our work in addressing the housing crisis. I hope we do consider some contingencies moving forward, just in case we don't see a necessary, whether it's fully successful or partially, whatever it looks like. I hope we have necessary contingencies in place to make sure that those projects don't depend on that funding. And then the second thing the last thing I would mention, specific to Fundy Key, should we see any more or continued whether it's delaying construction or what have you, I hope we consider moving forward support for the private businesses that have been impacted along that stretch of Market Square, whether it be patio delays or what have you. I hope we continue to consider, and certainly I know I've worked a lot with staff on this and appreciate their effort very much on this, but want to make sure that it's reminded that we consider support of them moving forward. Thanks very much, Brent.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to say, I guess, that we're supporting all of our business because there's a lot of transition going on everywhere within the city. So we'd like to think we're doing that as well. Councillor Lowe.
Councillor Hickey, they had equipment there today, big equipment digging test holes on the site where the school's going. So I would assume it's in the budget because the equipment's there today digging, and it's equipment from Fredericton. It's not local equipment.
Thank you, Councillor, for that little update. So I will take a receive and file, please. Councillor Sullivan and the Deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is 12.2. It's an update on the winter management plan.
Over to you, Commissioner Hugenholtz, for the intro.
Try to provide a briefing each year going into the winter around this time to help the community and councillors be prepared for the coming season. It is not my intent to belabor the process with a lengthy introduction, so I will simply note that the presentation has been tailored to highlight different aspects of our operation this year. In addition, we will touch on some of the bylaw amendments that are in the upcoming items before you this evening, and their relationship to our goal of providing timely clearing of our streets and sidewalks during the winter season. With that, I will turn it over to Director O'Reilly for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So your worship and council, been before you, I think every year since you've taken office. Usually I come in and I'll give you a long introduction, talks about our service deliverables and some of the intricate details of our winter management plan. You've heard it now 2 or 3 times, so I'm not going to belabor that point at all and focus on a bit more other aspects of our plan and what we're doing to improve upon it. Of course, if you're interested, we do have all that information available on our website, a couple of fact sheets at the end of the report as well. The only thing I'll focus on in terms of our service deliverables is we do have them. We do a performance objectives related to both sidewalks and streets, and they're both quality-based and time-based in terms of making sure they're cleared for each and every storm. So every year we do obviously learn from the year prior. We learn it throughout the winter season, and we always debrief after the winter season. And certainly that's we did it for last season as well. The reality, though, with last season, it was a fairly light one overall. We had 6 storms in total. We measure a storm, anything more than 7 centimeters of snow is considered a measurable storm. Only 1 in 6 of those storms were considered severe. We measure storms based on a storm severity index. It's obviously the amount of snow that fell, but also strong winds, changes from snow to rain, etc. So only 1 of those storms is really considered severe last winter. And only 1 of those storms came on the heels of another storm. So we actually had plenty of time between each storm to clean up, snow remove, get equipment ready, and to fight the next storm that came about us. So overall, last winter we did very well in terms of meeting the service objectives for street plowing. Again, for all 6 storms, pretty well across the board in the high 90s, or in some cases 100% meeting our service deliverables. Same thing with our sidewalk plowing for all 6 storms. Again, very good delivery of the objectives and meeting those objectives. Just on this slide, I just want to make two points. You'll notice the January 24 storm, focusing on 2 points around that. Last year, it was actually that one storm that was severe, of over 40 on our storm severity index. So again, the 84% clearing of sidewalks. That's indicative, of course, of a more severe storm. The more severe storm you have, typically more challenge to get all the sidewalks and streets cleared. So that's a clear indication how storm severity can impact us. And again, although those numbers all look pretty good across the board, again, high 80s, 90s, 100%, we do have to appreciate that people use these streets and use these sidewalks. So every percentage point below 100% is a time more than what's acceptable where pedestrians are waiting to have their sidewalk cleared or roads cleared for motorists. So we always achieve or attempt to achieve 100%, but when we don't, it impacts the public. That 16% on the Gen 24 storm, that amounts to about 40 kilometers of sidewalks that we didn't clear within a given time. So that's quite a bit when you look at it from that perspective. So again, every percentage counts and is important to serving our community, and we, of course, strive to that. Again, just like every year, we debrief after each and every storm. We debrief after the winter. We just finished our debriefing ahead of this winter season coming. And of course, what we're trying to aim to do is no different than any other service that is delivered in the city, right? We try to do it more effectively for the public overall. We try to do it using less resources. And of course, council has either priorities or, in other cases, strategic plan in place that ties back to what we try to do every single day as staff and our team. So again, that's no different for winter management plan. You know, we try to meet those service objectives as often as possible. Again, reduce those costs, and there's two links directly back to that strategic plan in terms of how we're moving forward with our winter operations. Again, both the reduction in highway usage saltage has both the financial and environmental benefit, and by 2027 to increase the number of sidewalks we plowed from the 55% we're at now up to 75%. Again, just for perspective, going from 55% to 75%, that's going to be another 90 kilometers of sidewalks that we're going to start plowing as of 2027. So it's going to be significant in terms of addition of service to the public. So again, building on what we've learned over the last year, and in some cases over multiple years, I'm going to go through a series of improvement items that we're going to be implementing for this coming season. The first one is around having good information. This will actually be I've been here longer than this, but this will be the 12th winter season that I've been involved in making those hard decisions as to when to send the plows out, how long they're going to be out, et cetera. And those decisions don't get any easier. You know, I'm just as stressed now going into this winter as I've been for the previous 11. And that stress level is not because of the team and the confidence making those decisions. It's really the information that we need to make the best decision. At the end of the day, if we plan too much and resource deploy too much for the storm that actually happens, we're essentially wasting city resources. The counter is actually worse, where if we actually under plan and under a resource deploy for the storm, it can amount to some dangerous conditions for pedestrians and motorists. So making those decisions early on and approach the storm and throughout the storm is very, very important to us for those various reasons. Up to now, at this time of year, you'll see about 5 or 6 icons on the top of my computer. They're AccuWeather and Weather Network. And of course, you look at all the forecasts, and none are the same for St. John, and sometimes they're all not accurate either. The challenge, of course, in St. John is we're a coastal community, right? So just a few kilometers outside of St. John, you can be a bit more accurate with those weather forecasts, but when you have the tides and the coastal actions beside us, that's really a moderating factor that really keeps us close to that 0 degree mark for a storm. It really impacts whether we're going to get snow, ice, rain, or what have you. So what we're going to be trialing for this winter is actually 5 different portable weather stations, essentially. And we're going to be leasing them. We're just making the final decision on as which product to use. And those will be, again, located in the 4 quadrants of the city, with the 5th one specifically focused on our sidewalks. And really that's to provide more information besides the actual forecast for St. John. So what's the actual temperature happening in those 4 areas of the city? What's the humidity happening in those areas of the city? And as important, which you don't have access to right now, is what's the pavement temperature doing? Because again, the air temperature will tell you where it's going to fall, the snow or rain, but once it hits that pavement, what's going to happen at that point? You know, whether it be salt or not, how hard we have to plow, whether we can get icy conditions. And we don't have that information right now. So with these trials of these 5 stations, we're going to have that added information. And it's kind of interesting, both supplies we're looking at is kind of smart technology where they'll start to, and it takes months and sometimes a year to actually start to take the forecasts that are predicted, what actually happens on the day of and how your asphalt actually reacts to it. And it actually starts to develop better forecasts for you based on what's happening within your community. So again, these are wireless systems, solar powered, they're quite portable in nature, and we're going to lease these. Again, don't put a lot of hard capital costs into it, lease them, identify something that really works for us, which again is going to help us make those right decisions at the right time for the citizens of St. John. Something else we're building on a bit is again, the availability and the redundancy of equipment. Again, at the end of the day, we did go through, again, the sustainability work a couple of years ago where essentially all the redundancy we would have available to us for equipment was lost. At the end of the day, we have 44 routes, so 11 sidewalk plow routes and 33 street plow routes. There's one person, one piece of equipment identified for each one of those. And so what happens is that when you don't have that person or that piece of equipment available at that time when you need it to plow, it's going to be impact to service. And just again, for perspective, each one of our sidewalk plows does an average of 20 kilometers on their route, and every one of our street plows does about 35 kilometers of street. So when you don't have that person or that piece of equipment available, that's going to impact that service availability. So what we are doing is there's actually 6 replacement plows that are here in St. John. It's actually 2 years of order, again, because of the delays in the market. We put 2 years of orders together into one, so it's actually 2 orders of plows, but they're all here and now available to put into service, which is obviously going to help in terms of reliability. We're going to do this as a trial, and for those 6 plows that these 6 new plows are replacing, we're going to hang on to them. Now, again, this is not a perfect situation. They're, in an ideal situation, would have been decommissioned completely, but they have a bit of life left to them. We put a little extra money into the requested budget for next year and really create a little bit of that redundancy to have those plows available because, again, if another plow goes down, there's nothing else available to put in its place. We're working with our team a lot more. I mean, this is just this reality in the market these days, including the city, where we are having a lot of turnover in terms of our employees. It's no different than a lot of other places. So we're putting a lot more focus on training and equipment inspection just to make sure that every time a plow goes out, it's in its best working order it possibly can be. But of course, at the end of the day, supply chain is impacting us. You know, we wait months sometimes for a part for a plow, and when you're waiting months, that's time we can't spare in terms of having that equipment available to us. But that's just the reality that we're in and we'll be in for foreseeable future. Another initiative that we're working on this year is we are adding more, it's called wingable sidewalks. So again, typically our sidewalks are plowed by one of those small sidewalk plows. It fits on the sidewalks, ideal for its purpose, but they are small, they're not quite as powerful as a street plow. And of course you have that issue of that windrow of snow between the street and sidewalk, which ends up being there and either gets pushed on the sidewalk or ends up along the curb line impacting transit riders, pedestrians, or it gets in the way of drainage. So we're adding more currently service sidewalks. So of those 240 kilometer sidewalks we plow, we're adding another 4 kilometers on of actually winging them with a street plow, which gets it done a lot faster and again gets rid of that block of snow between the street and sidewalk. It can't be used everywhere. Limitations are up on the screen, but again, we're making that progress to add more kilometers. So we're going from 11 kilometers of currently serviced sidewalks up to 15 that will be winging with the street plow. And again, that's just to get us more consistently meet those service objectives. Parking's a big opportunity and challenge for us every year. We made improvements over the years, again, trying to find that balance. So again, we realize as a community, there are people within it that rely on on-street parking. They have no other choice, and we respect that. But there has to be a balance there, because at the end of the day, when we're trying to plow a street, if a car's there when we're trying to plow, either two results happen. Either we waste resources by having to go back and plow if the car is not there anymore. We simply don't meet that service deliverable, and that's just the reality of it. So we have done a lot of work in the past about, again, creating two different overnight parking bans and sequencing in the right way, a lot of education to the public, enforcement with our parking team. We do, again, use alternate side parking and a few other measures where possible. After this agenda item, there's a second and third agenda item specifically back to this initiative of plowing, one specifically an amendment to our traffic bylaw that's going to add 4 or 5 streets of no parking on one side. And in those cases, it's really difficult for us to, almost impossible for us to plow when parking's on both sides of the street. So you'll see a separate recommendation after this one to actually take more parking off a few streets within the city. Likewise, another improvement we're implementing is that issue of pushing snow on the streets and sidewalks. So again, we work as hard as we can to clear those sidewalks and streets, but unfortunately there are sometimes situations where people push it onto the streets and sidewalks, which obviously create a situation like in the picture here where we've clearly cleared the sidewalk, but someone had plowed that driveway and pushed it back onto the roadway again. So what we're doing here is essentially replacing one of our bylaws and adding administrative penalties in place. So we've always had not always, but in 2009, we first put a bylaw in place for, prohibits pushing snow on the sidewalks, but it's very cumbersome in terms of the legal requirements to have any type of action on that. So with the administrative penalties, the idea is that besides going up and talking to people, we'll be able to issue that administrative penalty at the same time, which again creates that additional incentive to change the behavior the next time and not do it the next time. So that will be a separate item after the traffic bylaw item tonight for a recommendation to change that bylaw to create the administrative penalty. I do want to acknowledge our general counsel's office as well as Barb Crawford, one of my operations managers, who worked on both the traffic bylaw and this change to the pushing snow on the streets and sidewalks bylaw. In addition to that, just like in Lisa's presentation about engagement, in terms of a team at the city where we have a very, I'll say large but strong team in place across multiple departments that we rely on in order to make sure St. John's livable throughout the winter months. So of course our public works team, all the way down to operators, supervisors, and managers, to our fleet team, customer service and communication, which helps again that interaction with the public, and our parking enforcement team all play a part in terms of keeping our streets and sidewalks clear. And again, that coordination is key. Again, we regularly meet after each storm, after each winter, before each winter, and what went well, what didn't, what can we improve upon. The challenge, however, continues to remain. So again, we do plow a lot of streets and sidewalks. The numbers are up on the screen there now, but we plow enough vehicle lanes to drive from Moncton and back 4 times, and enough sidewalks to run 5 marathons each and every storm. That's a large quantity of infrastructure that we need to keep clear for every storm. The other reality before us is the variable winter storms and the winter itself. So again, overall, our resources are fairly static, right? The council approves the annual budget, but at the end of the day, the storms can be variable and the overall winter can be variable, which obviously impacts our ability to meet those service objectives. Community expectations is another issue. Again, we have those service objectives in place, but sometimes whether it's the objectives people don't agree with or ability to meet them because of outside influences, we do need to make sure people understand we are working as hard as we can to keep their street and sidewalks clear. I mentioned supply chains already. The other issue, which is an ongoing and trying to get better at this, is that division between winter and summer operations. I'm sure council knows this, but it's the same team that clears your streets and sidewalks and the same piece of equipment, or the same people and equipment that spend the other 3 seasons of the year, painting your traffic lines, fixing your potholes, all the stuff we do as a public works team. And the reality is, in the wintertime, we are an emergency service. You know, we need to be ready for that first storm, get ready for the winter, and we need that space between finishing the summer work and getting ready for the winter, so we're ready for that first storm no matter when it happens. And that's hard, right? Because again, this time of year, I see a lot of counselors now that I'm working with trying to get things across the finish line this time of year, but again, that same people, same equipment, are kind of doing two separate jobs 2 times a year, and we need to create more of a gap each year, both in the winter, both in the fall and in the spring, to make sure we're spending the time necessary to be ready for that emergency service. Resource contingency is going to continue to challenge for us. Again, we need it to overcome those influences. Again, the variables are going to be in place for us. You know, the winters can be difficult over a given season. And again, we're going to have outside influences like supply chain. So resource contingency in a service like this is absolutely important. As I mentioned earlier, we are building back some of that contingency around keeping 4 of those old plows. That's helping. In terms of staffing, again, these are just the numbers. And again, I'll tell it like it is. You know, about a quarter of the time, so 40 hours a week, we're fully staffed and ready to go for a storm to hit. We have a night shift in place. That's about 2/3 of the staff required to plow our streets. But it doesn't always snow in those times in the week, right? It snows outside those times. We have a great team in place that does work overtime when necessary to clear those streets and sidewalks. But again, we're very challenged in terms of being able to deliver consistency, again, depending on the intensity of the winter and each individual storm. Likewise, for summer months, we have a whole series of work the same team does over the winter months: litter collection, pothole patching, traffic sign repair, flooding response, which unfortunately is happening more over the winter months. This is, again, same people, same equipment that's used to fight storms as deliver some of these important services over the winter months. Besides the engaged team, again, the engaged community is important. Again, I'm not going to go through details here, but again, we try to reach out to the community every year through customer service, but also through communications team to, again, make sure the community understands our plan, but takes the steps they need to take in order to prepare and plan for the winter that's going to come about with us. And with that, Your Worship, again, just to receive and file recommendation, there'll be 2 specific recommendations related to bylaw changes after this, but certainly open to any questions or comments from council.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive and file with the deputy and Councillor Hickey? Sure, we do have a couple of comments or questions. There's a lot of great things in here, Tim, happening, some changes, et cetera. So it's really great to see. And I hope people will take note of the parking ban notification. You can get it via email, city website, radio ads, and by calling 658-4040. So there's lots of ways, but the best one is to register.
Yeah.
So over to Councillor Harris for the first question.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, Mayor, through to Tim, Director Tim. Where are those extra 4 kilometers going to be?
We're still working on it right now. So what we're planning to do is we have the 3 areas right now that we clear with street plows is on Loch Lomond Road, Westfield Road, and a section on Sand Cove Road. So what we're going to do is add it into those specific areas. So we're focused on operators that already know the area. So it'll be that general area, but we're still finalizing that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any rerouting in the sidewalk routes that we're plowing compared to last year?
No,
I know there's not
yeah.
necessarily a change in overall kilometers, but are we doing any ones differently?
The one that we are definitely doing differently, and that was, we did get some communication from Centennial School on the back sidewalk that goes down Vizart Street towards the backside of Centennial. We are increasing that from a priority 4 to a priority 2 sidewalk because it does service the school. That's essentially the only change. Again, unfortunately, we are at the stage, because I've been through years of this, of any significant change in terms of taking away or adding sidewalks or increasing the service priorities means we have to take it away from somewhere else with resources we have.
Yeah, which is something I've been asking for 2 years, and not to discredit anything you're saying, but I don't know when this council is going to have a fulsome conversation on these priorities, because I think that's really what we've been trying to do. And so I ask about the debrief in that way, because I know you're listening to us, but I think there is some disagreement around this table about what we're willing to trade for what. I don't want to add workload where we don't have the money for sure. I'm not, naive over here. I know we can accomplish more with less with strained budgets and during inflation, but I do think we've had enough conversations around the table around this winter management to warrant that conversation. And so at first, when I heard this, it sounded like this was more of a status quo. This is where we're at. But when I hear about some of these changes, and I know that we didn't have that discussion here, it's just a bit disappointing on my end. Not your fault at all. I don't know whose fault it is. I'm not trying to point fingers at all. I just wonder what it's going to take for us to do that, because I think there's another example here, and I see a bunch of more comments, so I'll yield my time to that. But I expect that those comments will be around the same vein, because I know we've had it a number of times.
I mean, the only comment I'll make on that overall is, we're going to make an attempt at it, and I think it's going to happen next year, is around service-based budgeting, right? Where again, council can make more wholesome decisions and discussions around what services are being provided for the money that comes along with it. I suspect that's going to come down the pipe next year, so I'll be looking forward to that discussion. But I don't want it lost on council either that you did make that commitment in your strategic plan to, again, be 90 extra kilometers of sidewalks that we'll be plowing as of 2027, which is just around the corner as well. Yeah, that will be a wholesome discussion for sure in terms of opening up those priorities and making adjustments to it, because again, if there are going to be changes that are going to impact resources, that's a budget question, right? Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good reminder of that, the service-based budget. Forgot about that. And yes, that's the route for that. Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Yeah, great report, Tim. Just a couple questions. You say you got 44 pieces of equipment. You got 44 bodies that drive the equipment. So Monday morning, there's 8 guys off with the flu. Does that mean 8 pieces of equipment don't plow either the streets or the roads?
That's exactly it.
So we don't have any spare drivers beyond the 44 drivers that drive the 44 pieces of equipment?
The only real redundancy we have is, again, we do have a night shift and a day shift. So there are times that we can have one of our night shift personnel stay late or vice versa. But again, there's a limits to how much we can push people to and do it safely. So there are no spare bodies around.
That's
yes.
a question.
Yeah.
The second one is, like, having driven cab for years, like, the worst thing a plow driver has when he comes to a street, and it's not one of the ones that you can't park at all. It's one that there's a car abandoned. And he comes back the second night to clean up from the first night, which they normally do, because it's the same driver, drives the same plow, the same turf, right? So all these bylaw officers that we're hiring, or I believe we're hiring, have they got the authority to have that car towed out of there so that plow can move clearly? I mean, that's the delay when a driver comes and he's got to stop, make sure his plow clears that car, and then goes in front of that car again.
Yeah.
So are these bylaw officers going to be authorized to move these cars with the help of, I mean, the police? No, it ain't going to happen. It's got to be our own people to do it.
So what change we did make a couple of years ago, it's related to the overnight parking bans, where our parking enforcement officers, so the commissionaires, were gaining the authority to be able to authorize the vehicle to be towed in relation to the overnight parking ban. Now, outside of those times, I don't know. We'd have to confer with the general counsel's office on that. But it's something I didn't know over a number of years we had the availability to do, but we were able to do it, and we asked council and we implemented it. So there are opportunities there, but outside that overnight parking ban, I don't know anybody else besides the police that would have the authority to tow an abandoned vehicle.
I mean, like, there's so many cars that are abandoned, so many trucks and cars that are abandoned on the street, especially in the south where it's hard to plow anyways. So, I mean, when the guy does the first night, he's got to go around it. But if he's got to go around it the second night when he comes to clear up, it's taking time and time. And I mean, we should definitely have something done about that.
Yeah. If you don't mind too, something else we've been a bit strategic with as well is related to these overnight parking bans. First of all, the south end, we can cover pretty much the entire area if there are illegally parked vehicles. For the northeast-west ban, we're a bit strategic where we focus on one area of the city. known areas for people to park illegally, and we actually focus on those areas. So again, somebody has to go pick their vehicle up at the compound. It doesn't take too many times for them to change their behavior. So we do that related to overnight parking ban, again, using our park enforcement officers. So we've done that to some extent, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. There are probably a lot of ways you can. I mean, I know you're always trying to, not be too wild with the public and try to educate the public. So, with the punitive versus the education, it's always that balance. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Through you to Tim. Thanks very much for your presentation, Tim. I think we're seeing our winter management becoming increasingly data-driven, becoming increasingly outcomes-focused. I think that's part of our continuous improvement. We're seeing certainly the technology investment is pretty exciting and hopefully sets the tone for what's to come. A couple questions. Specific to bylaw enforcement with the intended increased capacity, whether it be through bylaw enforcement officers or otherwise, I wonder how we can get better at addressing, I find one thing that's a consistent issue for us in particular in the South End is we get a sidewalk plow that runs by, and then someone comes and plows a private parking lot and then ends up ruining the work that was done by the city, but we've already gone by. So it's hard to come back. How do we, and perhaps to Mayor Reardon's point, punitive versus educational, how do we try and work those out? They seem to be recurring issues for me, hearing it a lot.
Councillor, it's in your kit, the answer. Coming right up.
Yeah.
I must have missed, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the very next item, it is introducing administrative penalties. Financial incentive for those people that need it in order to stop doing it. It's not ideal. We're still going to be challenged resource-wise for enforcement officers, but it's a step in that direction of encouraging better behaviors by those who need that added encouragement.
And I guess we'll have to come up with 6 new plow names too.
Sorry, was that?
I said we'll have to come up with 6 new plow names.
Right.
Oh, that's going to be the fun part. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great report, Tim, as always. Every year, it's good to look forward to steady improvements, and there's been many since 2012 when I first started. You guys have been doing great. A couple of things that I just want to put out there, more for the public's information. Do we do pre-plowing inspections? Like, do we send the half-ton around ahead of the plow to identify problem vehicles and then try to get them off, or does the plow just have to do that on its own?
Well, we definitely every year do dry runs of our route. We do that for sure with all our plow operators. We have in previous years, I need to confirm if we're going to do it this year or not, but basically create these flyers where we spend a bit of time traveling around, just put pamphlets on windshields and say, hey, it's coming. If you were here when it snows, you're going to be illegally parked. So we'll make an effort to do that again this year, just to put that reminder up for people who need it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing, just to pick up on Councillor Lowe's comment, is there restrictions on what we can do? Like, when I was working, I would always have people that were trained to do something, and I could call on them if somebody got sick and had to go home. Do we not have that flexibility? To replace a driver who has to go home sick?
Well, again, no, because we only have so many people that are trained on different pieces of equipment, right? So, yeah, so the short answer, like I say, the redundancy that we have, if any, in terms of staffing is, and we do this often, is if somebody's going to be sick during the day or off for whatever reason, we'll keep one of our night shift operators a few extra hours to get past the morning rush. That's our solution. But again, we don't have the redundancy of staff if somebody's missing. And it happens just with equipment.
Right, okay. All right, thanks very much.
Sure.
Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. I just want to, first of all, thank you because I've been dealing with Centennial School and, they have Vizard Street's not often plowed and that's where the kids go as opposed to up on Village Avenue. And I want to thank you because we're putting in a crosswalk there with a light in the spring. And you're going to be plowing Vizard Street this year. So that's really good because the parents there and the administration and the Parent Association have contacted me about that for a while now. And I really want to thank you for doing that. And the other one is on the other side, across on Adelaide Street is the Learning Center, which is packed of little children who walk the streets of the North End too. And you said you were going to put a crosswalk on Harrington Street too, because they're speeders. And I want to thank you. And today I went down to the bottom of Bridge Street and Main Street where they're going to be redoing the deck on Robertson Square, putting up a sign on Robertson Square. We had a private person go and fix, Dougie Simpson, go and fix all the street for us down there, or the roundabout, which a lot of people go down to. We painted a mural, we cleaned things up. And today we got a three-way stop sign, which I went to Tim about a while ago, because the traffic, Main Street is turned into a bit of a running zone for fast cars, and now it stops them. And we have enormous number of new people in the North End, and a lot of new children, and they're using the streets more and more because the North End is a walking community. And we have very narrow streets, probably much narrower than some of the streets in the South End, which we talk about a lot. But in the North End, we also have narrow streets. And so I just want to thank you for all that, to responding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Radwan, over to you to finish us off.
Thank you, Mayor. Director O'Reilly, first of all, it's great to see the continuous improvements, and I love the idea of the solar-powered stations and the wing plows to help with the sidewalks. I think going forward, what I'm going to be looking for is to see what kind of outcomes like your continuous improvements are having, to see how closer we're going to get to our goals in the strat plan, because sometimes it's hard when you're first recognizing what the continuous improvements might be, what the outcome will be. So hopefully we'll see a lot of movement there. I have a couple of questions. One, I'm wondering, do we have the ability, I mean, obviously you need the budget, but there obviously must be some overtime being spent. Do we have the ability in Local 18 contract to hire casual staff?
Not for this purpose, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Because I mean, sometimes, and I know obviously permanent staff numbers are always more favorable to the union, but if you constantly needed to bring in those casual staff, then there creates a business case for having a permanent staff member. So anyway, I also wanted to know, so even though we have all these service levels and the different priorities, if staff finish one area early, do they move on to the other area?
Well, it happens all the time.
Yeah, okay.
Again, like our typical storm is we're down a couple of people or a piece of equipment. So it's very common for us to have one of our operators do two routes. So yeah, it's basically by the time they finish theirs, they pick up on somebody else's and get it done. It happens every storm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you talked about having, like, making plans and sitting together and making different plans depending on, are we getting 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, whatever. Do you have some of these plans, or are you able to make some of these plans up in advance and then just tweak them as needed? Like, so if we were getting 30 centimeters versus 5 centimeters versus freezing rain, do you already have that in place and you can just kind of tweak them, or is it something you could do?
Well, I guess in terms of our plowing response, it is fairly typical at this point in time. We used to have what's called standing routes and plow routes, which was a different response type depending on the down a storm. But that storm, we're going to refrain from putting the salt down because it's going to melt anyway. And actually put liquid brine down ahead of the storm, and actually put a nice good layer of salt where it needs to be between the street and the snow. And it's those decision points as well, which this data is going to help us decide upon. Because if the pavement temperature is too cold, we actually turn into a slippery situation on our streets. But the reality is every storm is a little bit different, right? Whether it's the forecast that's coming, the resources available to you, there's differences for every type of response. So we do have our benchmarks, but unfortunately, to do it right and with, again, the contingencies in place that we don't really have. Every storm is really the planning exercise. Here it's coming, here's what's expected, here's our current equipment status or people status, what's the best way to attack it, and it's
Yeah.
different really every time.
I can appreciate that because, I mean, of course, it could be a different length of time. We could, you know, I always say, oh, we're getting dumped on because it's coming very quick, right? No, that's wonderful. I think that it's great, and I love to see the continuous improvements, and hopefully we'll get closer to those goals.
Thank you, Counselor. I have a couple of quick questions for you. Using less sand?
The sand or salt?
Sand. You have to pick up the sand is the only reason I ask,
Yeah.
and it can be slippery.
Yeah,
Not
it is,
really
it is a trade-off. Again, we do have to pick it up, but it is the right application in some instances, right? There's some parts of the city where we use sand standard, in places where there's wells. We do use sand instead of salt in those locations. And then there are some storms, especially when the temperatures can be really low, where salt's not effective, we do use it. Yeah, we don't track year to year our sand use as much as salt. But we're very careful to only use it when we need to use it, because as you say, in the springtime, we have to sweep it up. Yep.
You have a variety of equipment to remove or move snow. Do they all require the different classes of license to drive or no? Because I know some of those big wing vehicles would be bigger than maybe your little half tons or whatever.
Yeah, so our 1 tons essentially just need a Class 5 license, but our 6 yards, our tandems are all Class 3 licenses or better.
Class 3.
Yeah, with the air brake endorsement.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know that like the city goes in, you know, when the banks get too high, and you've talked about that, and I love that the bigger trucks that can, with the wing, can do the sidewalk that comes right out to the street with no real median at the end of it. I think probably Westmoreland is one of those that could happen on. Anyways, what I'm curious about, I guess, with all of that is at the end of the day, there's a lot of places where you can't do that. And would there be a move going forward? And I know we wouldn't have the equipment at this point in time. Like some cities plow the snow into the middle of the city and then pick it up. You don't end up with that.
Yeah.
With that, you know, that's, and I don't know what the efficiencies would be of that, but it seems like it would be like one pickup versus going back over time. So it might be something.
Yeah.
If we get rich.
And the time between storms is the extent to which we get that done.
I think we do a pretty good job considering we have almost 600 kilometers of roads and almost 1,200 lanes of kilometers. So it is a formidable job every few days if we're unlucky to get that much snow. Anyways, so I have the motion is on the floor. I have a mover and a seconder, so I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 12.3. It's a traffic bylaw amendment, first and second reading.
Over to you, Commissioner Hugenholtz, to introduce.
Before you this evening is the first and second reading of some bylaw changes necessary to implement some important parking changes. This amendment will see parking reduced from both sides of the street to one side of the street for those listed. The streets contemplated in this amendment are very narrow and historically have had vehicles parking on both sides. That has hampered our ability to effectively plow those streets and collect solid waste, particularly in the summer months. So the proposed amendment will only limit parking to one side of the street. There will still be an option for on-street parking. So we believe we're striking a good balance between achieving the objectives of our winter management plan and providing on-street parking to residents. Subject to any questions, I'll turn it back over to the chair for the required readings.
Thank you so much. City Clerk, I'll get you to give us the readings of what we need first, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Radwan for a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just 2 readings required here, first and second reading. Both require approval, so that'd be 2 separate motions.
Okay. Councillor Radwan, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick comment. So I'm good with this, but I'd just like to see Silverstone added in the future. It's really problematic in the winter time when people are parking on both sides of the road. So it's making it difficult for our plow truck drivers, and they're having to go back again and again and again. So just a comment from me. Thank you.
I'm sure our Mr. O'Reilly's noted that. So I will, I need a mover and a seconder for approval of first reading by title. The deputy and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number MV 10.1 and amendments thereto.
Motion to approve second reading by title. The deputy and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number MV 10.1 and amendments thereto.
Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is 12.4. This is another bylaw, bylaw respecting clearance and snow and removal of snow and ice from the public streets in the City of St. John, and it requires first and second reading as well.
I'm sending this over to you, Commissioner Hugenholtz, for the introduction.
Good evening again. So this is first and second reading of a proposed bylaw amendment required to implement changes to the snow removal bylaw. This would represent a complete repeal of the old bylaw and replacement with updated language to reflect the Local Governance Act. Director O'Reilly would have alluded to the challenges of placement of snow on streets and sidewalks. So staff are continuously looking for improvement opportunities to help us deliver better public services. This will aid in that purpose, and this does clarify the requirements for citizens as it relates to removal of ice and snow in the public right-of-way, and does include some provisions for administrative penalties as well. Again, subject to any questions, I'll turn it over to the chair for the required readings.
Okay, so I need two motions. As the clerk said, the first motion would be to approve first reading by title. Deputy and Councillor Stewart on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw respecting clearance and removal of snow and ice from the public streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number LG-22.
Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to approve second reading by title. Councillor Lowe and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw respecting clearance and removal of snow and ice from the public streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number LG-22.
Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 13.1. This came from the Finance Committee. It's a request for supplementary heritage grant funding.
Thank you. I'm sending this one over to Councillor Norton, our finance chair, to leave earlier, a little bit earlier this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship. In Chair Sullivan's absence, happy to tee this one up for, I believe, Commissioner Poffenroth might be going to, or the CAO, I understand. At the November 8th meeting of the Finance Committee, the committee considered a request to reallocate $30,000 from the unspecified grants to the heritage grants. This request made by the Heritage Development Board and assessed by city staff is intended to finance heritage conservation projects currently waitlisted for the 2023 year. Extra funding has been allocated most recently in 2018 to cover additional grant requests. The Finance Committee is supportive of this request as it will not impact the overall 2023 general operating budget. Future budget allocation recommendations will be evidence-based, utilization rate, program objectives met, and city return on investment. And back over to you, Madam Mayor. I don't know if the CAO or the Commissioner of Finance or perhaps Commissioner Poffenroth has more details for council as it relates.
So I'll get you to move that for me.
I'll move, yes, absolutely.
Okay, and I'll
move
take a
that
second. Your Honor.
recommendation.
Councillor Radwan, is there any, Councillor Radwan, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that council knows that, first of all, I appreciate our chair of Heritage. She's wonderful. But I do think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. This was supposed to be an ask for a regular reoccurring $40,000. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and say yes to this, but that was supposed to be the nature of the letter, so.
Okay, so what we've got there is what you have is your recommendation in the kit. Counselor? Can you do Counselor Norton? I'm going to send it back to Counselor Norton.
Your worship, I don't know if it's worthwhile for council's benefit, just with the councilor's concern. I know Councilor Radwan had raised the issue last time she does sit on the Heritage Committee, and that her understanding or her impression was that was an ongoing request, but as it's written in the recommendation, this is a one-time recommendation from staff. So other ask fors to be considered in future events.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I have a motion on the floor then. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item was an item removed from consent agenda, so it's now 14.1, and it's a report with respect to Heatherway resurfacing/reconstruction.
Okay. So Counselor Radwan, you brought that forward.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I just really wanted to see, I wanted to have a bit of a more nuanced discussion about this. I'm struggling with this because, yes, it's council's priority to focus in on density in South and North End. But there's really not been a whole lot of investment in the east side and the west side. So I'm a little bit concerned about us letting go those other areas. And I'm also thinking maybe we need to be trying to plan with maybe some sort of reserve to be able to get more roads done in the future. My other concern is if we are going to do this, I feel like we need to do it right. We need to right size the road. Do we have active transportation there? I know, like it said in the report, that there's not been a whole lot of regular feedback coming from the neighborhood, but I was part of the meeting that happened when Director O'Reilly did this with the neighborhood. There was not a lot of people present. I know there was a lot of staff asked for feedback. I don't think they got a lot of feedback, so it's been a very difficult one. When I look at this, I drove on Heatherway today just to double check. How bad is the road? The Glen Road is just so bad. I feel like I'm going to rip the bottom of my SUV out when I drive there. We have other roads like McLeod, and there's so many that are just getting so worn down. And once again, we can talk about tax reform, but we are making some strategic investments, and we do need the density in the north and south end. But how do we make sure that we're not having a whole lot of other problems going forward? So if staff have any comments on that, that would be great. I'm just struggling with this.
Commissioner Hugenholtz, can I send that over to you for why Heatherway was chosen and a little bit of background there for us?
Yeah, certainly. I guess just to back up before I address the councillor's specific concerns, I do want to just mention a little bit of background about how we're here right now. So this was on our list for asphalt resurfacing at least a couple of years ago now. And at that time, council indicated some concerns with the recommendation. We were asked to take a look at other options, including a road diet. So we did undertake that public consultation that Councillor Radwan alluded to. We priced out a variety of options for the reconfiguration of the right-of-way. And just as we were coming back to council with another recommendation, that was right around the time that we saw considerable changes in the tender prices we were receiving. So what we had to do ultimately was try to scale back the proposed work and adjust the pricing that we were basing it on. So that is what's before you here this evening. But certainly I appreciate that there's a lot of differing opinions about what needs to happen. at this particular location. That is similar to the feedback that we received during the public consultation. There was really not consensus. There was a lot of ideas, very hard to see a clear consensus, and I think everybody on the discussion at that time appreciated that. But to your point, Councillor Radwan, look, I fully appreciate that there are a lot of other needs on the east side, and we've certainly spoken about some of them, Glen Road, McLeod Road, others, investment in parks, recreation, which you and other councillors around this table have spoken to a number of times. That's kind of one of the reasons we're hesitating a little bit in recommending the incremental cost to resize this roadway essentially at this point in time, because there are a lot of other competing priorities throughout the city and in the east side, and it's just there needs to be a clear consensus, I guess, that this is the investment that we want to invest in at this point in time. I'm not sure if that addresses your concerns, Councillor.
Okay, I'll ask Councillor Hirsch, did you want to comment?
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly, my opinion would not be that we go down the bike lane road for there, even though I'm a vehement defender and supporter of improving and increasing our active transit and protection for cyclists. It comes from nowhere and goes nowhere, so I don't see it providing that. I guess I do see development happening over there. I do think the east side needs to have a sense of momentum added to it that just doesn't exist right now. And there isn't really anywhere where we have an opportunity to do something transformative. I get the price tag is $1.3 million. And I'm not saying let's spend it this year, but I just don't see the creativity applied to it to understand. I know we went to community and we didn't get a lot of feedback, but there is organizations in town that we could help and go to, like ACAP St. John, that could reimagine that double lane usage. I know we have to move manhole covers. I see that everything that goes into that. But that area is it's such an overbuilt road. It makes no sense to make investment right now that ties us to it for another 50 years. We have to undo the mistake of a previous council. It is what it is. It's going to cost us something. Status quo isn't the solution either. Perhaps the solution is to resurface the worst lane on each side, commit to a single lane on each side for resurfacing, and leave it with that for now and come back to it again next year. But I think we have to engage some outside help to get beyond just what we see here for greening one side. I think that is the solution. I think it'll make it a highly attractive destination for pedestrians. I think members in community come out of their homes more and walk through it. I think they gather more and they produce ideas and they get the connection and the community development that's missing right now out there right now. And it is something that planners and groups like Strong Towns have commented at length on in suburban neighborhoods because of the way that they're designed and the way we committed to them as a municipality, since the 70s and 80s, and we're just undoing now and unlearning. People don't connect like they need to develop that type of community. And I think putting in an effort here on the east side shows that there is a sense that we need to go somewhere different, that the community needs to come together, and we provide them that third space, which is often missing in our community for people to gather and hang out in and pass through. So it's just my opinion. I know you're looking for consensus, but I don't think bike lanes that come from nowhere and go nowhere is going to support this council's desire for the future, because honestly, public opinion right now is not the strongest for bike lanes. And if we take something like this that has no sense to it and throw it out there, I think we can kiss what's left of that public opinion goodbye. And our cyclists need that support.
Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I think I'm experiencing a similar struggle on this one. And I wonder if we've limited ourselves a bit in our options. Like I'm confused as to why we couldn't seek an option that would just shut down that second side, transfer traffic onto one side of the road, include a bike lane on that shut down side of the road and section the rest of it off, whether the community decides to pick it up for ball hockey, whether the community decides to pick it up or whether we decide to offer initiative there moving forward and then look to eventually see further investment. I struggle with not having an option in the middle, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Yeah, one thing, Michael and Tim, I would like to bring up is that I went down and worked with ACAP a couple of years ago at Seaside Park, and much the same as what Brent and David are talking about. And we spent the morning tearing up the pavement down there. And we did it with, help me out here, folks. A pickaxe, thank you. And we cleaned it all up, and then they seeded it, and then they put in some trees. And there was no cost to the city because it was all volunteers. And with marigolds and murals over the last 26 years, we've cleaned up all kinds of places, parks and things like that. And they've really, really been appreciated in the city and adds value to our city. So I'm just wondering, could we take one of those lanes? I keep hearing that we only need 2 lanes. And could we dig up the pavement with some volunteers and then seed it and grass it? And I think when we do things together in the city, we really do well. This is an action-oriented city, and we really, really do well when we come together. So I'm just thinking, maybe we should look at that option. And it is a great city, like our name, Big Heart. There's no problem getting volunteers out for a specific purpose and to make the city look good. So I'd like to throw that out to you. Maybe we could do something in the spring. I'm pretty good with a pickaxe, so I'd put my name forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Killen, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also supportive of taking another look at this. It seems like Heatherway's been a bone of contention for quite some time, and it really needs, I understand there, maybe it's a Shape Your City initiative, or somehow we can reimagine this a little bit and actually work more on having a transportation network that does connect from point A to point B. There's so many other opportunities in St. John, and this one just seems like a miss on focusing on it at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Worship. I guess from what I'm hearing, it's like uncertainty in this moving forward, and I'm wondering if it wouldn't be appropriate to table it for a few weeks till we get some more public engagement and get some new discussion going on it. Does that throw a wrench into everything, Tim?
Before we do that, can I get Councillor Stewart to have his say on this? And you can think about either tabling it or referring it back to staff, maybe. Councillor Stewart, can I go to you next?
Thank you. So I guess based on the feedback that I'm hearing tonight, we're not ready to deal with this, but I hate kicking things down the road, which is exactly what we've done with this a couple of times. If we're going to say we're putting this off for a couple of weeks, then it's a couple of weeks. Let's make a decision on this. Get united and let's go forward. If we pave this, I'll ask this to Commissioner Hugenholz. If we pave both sides of this and we make bike lanes and construction continues there, we build some more apartment buildings in that area and it gets busier, can we not take those bike lanes back and make them roadway again, if that was the case? Or 5 years from now, if we decide that we want a green part of that, yes, there's going to be more money involved, but either way we do this, we can't keep kicking this down the road.
Commissioner Hugenholz, can I go over to you?
Thank you, Your Worship. And look, I really appreciate the discussion that we're having here this evening. And it is a challenging file. It's hard to see what the right thing to do is. There's a lot of opinions about it. I'll try to address a few of the points made or the questions raised. And if I do forget any, let me know. But to your point, Councillor Stewart, absolutely. If we had bike lanes on either side, if circumstances change down the road, those could be repurposed back into vehicle lanes if the traffic volumes do warrant that. And, in terms of the if we are going to green that space, what are the options? There's certainly a lot of options, and each has its kind of combination of pros and cons. For example, what we carried was simply hydro seeding, which is probably your least capital cost investment, but it may in turn generate the highest operating cost requirements on a go-forward basis. Certainly, there are other things that we could probably do with that space that would increase our initial outlay, but perhaps reduce the amount of ongoing maintenance from time to time. The question about volunteers that was raised, certainly I think that if it's an area of small scale, that's an option we could leverage the great volunteer community that we have in our city with the Big Heart. But I would say in this case, this section of street that we're talking about is about 1 kilometer wide. And those 2 lanes together we're talking a substantial area. So I really think it is something that requires heavy equipment. It is something that requires a contractor on site to do that work, as well as some of the other work that's associated with that, including reconfiguration of the curbs, moving some of the drainage, making some adjustments to the underground infrastructure that is going to remain in place in those areas. And finally, the other thing I heard was about, creative ideas for making better use of that space. That is certainly one of the things that we struggled with during that consultation session. Just what is the alternative use? What does it look like? How does the community sort of fill in the gap and make use of that space and use it as a means to connect more as neighbors? I love the idea that somehow organically programming will arise and activities will arise that will make use of that space, and certainly that is a possibility. It didn't come up during our consultation sessions, I'll say that. I'll add as well that part of our strategy on the Play SJ side of things with community playgrounds has been, as some of these neighborhood playgrounds get to the end of their effective life and the equipment needs to be replaced or decommissioned, that we do undertake a process of engaging with that community to look if there is some repurposing that needs to happen, if there's a desire to sort of raise some funds and move more to a community ownership model of operation. I will just simply point out that our staff on the recreation side of things did engage with that community probably, I want to say, about 1.5 years, 2 years ago now, to explore those options just for that playground. So that's a much, much smaller scale than what we're talking about with an entire double laneway of roadway. And unfortunately, again, there was no consensus of the community, no leadership to step forward and say, yeah, we're going to take this on. So that's one of the reasons why we kind of struggle to think that there is going to be, something great that takes over this space and makes use of it. That's certainly something that I think we would all like to see. But what I would suggest, I guess, if council generally is not prepared to endorse the recommendation before you hear this evening, I guess as an interim step, what I would suggest is that we move forward next year with resurfacing one side of that median. Then throughout the course of the year, we make some changes to the signage, go through a stop up and close process for the remaining road, and just put some concrete barricades in for now, block that space off. Then we have time. We're not wasting the money. We can take some time and reassess, how it's working with those 2 lanes closed. We can reassess our capital plans in 2024 or 2025 and beyond to see if there are some other solutions that come up in the interim period. So I would leave it there and turn it back over to the chair.
I'm gonna go to the city manager in just a second, but I guess from me, I don't want to do anything too drastic, because if we come up with when we end up with the end of, exclusionary zoning, and we end up with, allowing 4 and 6 unit buildings, like, will we see that growth then, and then will we need that? I walked Heather Way when I was campaigning, so I walked the whole city, but I remember walking on that street and looking at that divided 4 lanes, and thinking like what was the purpose? So it was obviously built with the intention of that growth would happen. So I think like a lot of the things that we're doing now with zoning is to drive growth. So that's why I would be nervous about doing anything too drastic, because I'd like to keep the road there to a certain extent. But city manager, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So, a number of points in terms of what Commissioner Hugenholtz said. If we were to put barricades there, it would require a public process, so there'd have to be a stop-up and closure of the street, and that would require a public process. So, something to be mindful of. We're struggling with oversized infrastructure that should never have been built to the standard, because we really didn't need it as a community. And so when we looked at this, we didn't have a clear goal in terms of what we're trying to achieve. Are we trying to achieve green space? Are we trying to reduce infrastructure? Do we want to actually go with the lowest cost solution? Because really what's recommended is a lower cost solution, because to raise the infrastructure, to shut down a couple lanes, to make the adjustments, remove the asphalt, that sort of thing, as is noted in the report, it's about $1.3 million. So then we look at, we reflect on council's priorities in terms of where do we want to invest money and that sort of thing, which is, big items we've heard this year in terms of sidewalks and crosswalks and those sorts of things, starting to invest in Move SJ in the traffic circle. And so the capital budget reflects those investments with an additional $700,000 in sidewalks and crosswalks. So if we're to take money and invest in this, in greening that, we're going to have, we end up having to pull something off our capital program, which we can do, but it's, ultimately what do we want to achieve with the money that we have allocated? So what was recommended was really, renewal for 15 to 20 years. That's what a shave and pave gives us. The infrastructure is good for another 50 years approximately before the street needs to be fully reconstructed. So it's a shave and a pave, $630,000, and it renews it for 15 to 20 years. Other things, we'd have to be mindful of if we were to just do one side is that, you don't necessarily get a good seal with the asphalt. And so that can impact the underground asphalt and infrastructure, which can deteriorate the underbase of the infrastructure more quickly. So things we need to be mindful of as well. And as has been mentioned, there has been new apartment buildings built along there. There's additional land in along Grandview Avenue and Heather Way for further development. So all things we can consider, but if council wants us to take a look at this, we're happy to do that in return with some other options for consideration.
Okay, I'm going back to Councillor Hickey. Councillor Hickey? Oh,
Thanks very much, Your Worship.
Okay.
I guess thanks for the comments through you to the city, to the CAO and to Mike as well. I appreciate those comments. I guess in that spirit, to the deputy's point, as well as reflecting the timeliness of this, to Councillor Stewart's point, I guess I would just ask for I would move a tabling motion to have this report back at either this next coming meeting or the meeting following to come up with a solution for this.
Seconder on the table? Do I have a seconder on the tabling motion? Oh, for Councillor Radwan? Okay. All right, so, and you'll have to refresh my memory, City Clerk, on a tabling motion. Are we done?
Your worship, I would recommend that, it sounds like council's looking to refer this back to staff for a report. So if it was simply referred back to the CAO to produce a new report or new recommendation, that would be
Councillor
appropriate.
Hickey? Councillor Radwan? Okay, so it's a referral motion. We'll refer it back. And so the question now is going to be, do you want to refer it back to the CAO for further consideration or not? That's your option. Well, I'm going to call the question because there's no debate on the referral. You either want to refer it or you don't want to refer it. You could certainly, if it passes, you can certainly link with staff with any of your concerns. So on the question to refer back to the CAO, I'll call the question. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Was there any nays? No nays? Okay. Oh, done. Yeah. All right, so that motion passes to refer it back to the CAO. Excellent. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is 15.1, letter from a citizen with regard to a walk of fame. There's a recommendation to receive for information.
I have a mover and a seconder on that. Oh, sorry, you got your light on there, Deputy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I read this letter with interest, and you know, I think about a small city with a big heart. This sort of fell in here pretty in a pretty neat spot. Is there a possibility that we could have staff sit down with Stephen Cunningham and talk about having a walk of fame somewhere? Not necessarily there, but in some way, shape, or form in the city. I didn't realize we had so many famous people in the city of St. John. He says it's 38, so
I read that with interest
I'm just
myself.
wondering if, you know, I mean, I'm fine with receipt for information, but just planting that seed and, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I read that with interest myself, and I wondered something a little similar, and I wondered if I should go over to Envision for their for tourism, because that's kind of an interesting spot as well for it. But Councillor Hickey, over to you.
In the same vein, my suggestion was to refer it to the Arts Board.
Okay, let's pick one.
I don't know what's best. I just tossing that in.
Sorry, CAO, go ahead.
Yeah, we can take it back and you know, you can either refer it to, you know, Envision for consideration, but at the end of the day, the capital cost would, I think, come from the city of St. John. Arts Board could provide some input and provide a recommendation. So either is fine, I think, and for consideration and engagement of the author of the letter, Ms. Cunningham, and further get some input on it before we consider it further.
Okay, so over to you, over to the CAO?
Yeah, over to the CAO is fine, yeah.
All right, so over to the CAO will be the motion. Hickey, you're good with that, Councillor? Councillor Ogden, over to you.
I think it's a great idea in the sense that we've been doing murals and murals. We've done about 220 murals. And a lot of them, the first ones we did at Tondi's were Donald Sutherland and all those people. And then Holly had them redone and put up on Charlotte Street. But we also did Charles Gorman and things like that. And I'm still getting calls from people. Can you do a mural of relative, like I was thinking of Turnbull with the pitch propeller. And I still have a list of people calling. And then I say, well, what's famous about them? And then when you think about Turnbull with the pitch propeller, that's pretty famous. And so if you look around the murals in St. John, we have done a number of them, but they're spotty because of the size of our city and everything. But if we had one place, like even the girl that just was the boxing champion, Charlie Cavanaugh, you know, it's good to be proud of who you are and good to tell our stories. And we've learned that this year when we went with the First Nations down to Fort Latour, and there's a whole cultural renewal with the First Nations and Black Lives Matter of who you are when you know yourself. And so I think this is a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I know Mr. Cunningham. He's approached me about this a couple of times. I'm very glad to see this on here tonight. I think it's a great idea. And you talk about small city, big heart. He's got a big heart, and he wants to do his own fundraising. I think he's going to get some good, positive responses on that. So I just don't want to receive and file this.
Yep. No, we've got a motion on the floor to send it over to the CAO. So the motion's on the floor, so I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, we have two items from Committee of the Whole. First one is 17.1, Building Safer Community Fund Grant Agreement. And the resolution for that would be that the city enter into a grant agreement with Anglophone School District South, generally in the form as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on November 14, 2023, for the purpose of distributing the funds received from Public Safety Canada under the Building Safer Communities Fund, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the said grant agreement and any other documents ancillary thereto.
I've got a mover, the deputy, got a seconder, Councillor Norton on the question. Councillor Ogden?
Am I allowed to make a point on this, or?
Yep.
You sure? Okay. What this is about to me when we listen to it as a educator and coach was, I hope people learn more about this and that we have it in all our high schools and university, because that age group, which I spent most of my time with in my life, that 15 to 25 age group, they really are people, young people looking for places. I always worry about when they get out of high school, what is there for them in St. John in the sense of meaning and such. We need far more education in St. John. But the isolation and the trauma that young people experience today, and I do think the world is moving a lot faster. And I think this is just a wonderful idea. And I hope the school board, maybe our Department of Health, because this is mental health, get on board with this, because this is just a fabulous idea of getting kids out of isolation, getting them into groups, whether it be theater or sports or whatever. But the isolation of people, and of course we know it happens to all ages, but this is really something that's really important in mental health issues today. So I just want to say this is a fabulous idea, and I hope the press does a lot on this, and I really hope it expands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just very briefly on this one, I just wanted to thank, this initiative was led through our public safety team. I just wanted to thank Chief Clifford as well as Leah Rabisha for their significant work on this file. This is a really good example of funding flowing directly from a federal government to municipal government that recognizes that we are nimble, that we are able to administer funds appropriately, that we are able to deliver real outcomes for a community, in particular, a school that is struggling. I think that's really important, and I think that's what we're seeing a really good example of here.
Okay, sounds good. Do I have I've got the motions on the floor, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The final item are recommendations for appointments to committees, and I can read those out.
Please do.
Heritage Board to reappoint Rod Steers for a 1-year term, reappoint Julian Wimette for a 3-year term, and appoint Jesse Smith for a 3-year term. Imperial Theater, appoint Willington Vega for a 3-year term. Planning Advisory Committee to appoint Terrence Hutchinson and Ashima Eldemiri for 3-year terms. Pro Kids, Vicky March, Adam Todd for 3-year terms. St. John Community Arts Board to reappoint Mustafa Abunneil and Laura Olin for 3-year terms, and appoint Jeremy Cairns for a 3-year term. And St. John Public Library to reappoint Joanne McGinnis for a 3-year term, to appoint Carrie Tanischuk for a 3-year term, and Philip Halton for a 3-year term, and St. John Transit Commission to reappoint Kirk Peacock, Nick Cameron, and Tina Collins, each for 3-year terms.
Okay, I'll take a mover, the deputy and Councillor Radwan on that, on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And that's it. Over to you, Councillor Lowe. Motion to adjourn. Got a seconder on that? The deputy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, staff. Okay, I have a question.